How often do we find ourselves wanting to change our lives, but not knowing where to start? Often, it seems that to do this, you need to do something huge, to take drastic steps. But James Clear, in his book Atomic Habits, offers a completely different approach. He teaches us that the key to big changes is in small, daily steps that may seem insignificant at first glance, but over time they can lead to tremendous results. Today, I'm going to share with you the main ideas in the book and how they can dramatically change your life. Let's go. First, the power of small changes. The main message of the book begins with the idea that great successes result from many small improvements. James Clear tells the story of a British cycling team that had been failing on the international stage for years. Their coach decided to change their approach. Instead of aiming for dramatic changes, he suggested improving everything a little by just 1% at a time. They improved the seats on their bikes, started using better materials for uniforms, and even tackled small details like proper hand position while riding. What happened a few years later? The cycling team became one of the most successful in the world. This is the principle behind the book. Small, almost imperceptible steps can lead to tremendous results. The same approach can be applied to each of us. Imagine you want to develop a habit of exercising. Instead of setting huge goals for yourself at once, start small. Do one small workout a day. Even if it's only a few minutes, but if you do it every day, you'll see huge progress in a year. Small, regular steps eventually lead to big results, and that is the key. Second, identity as the key to change. One of Clear's most interesting ideas is that it's not just what we do, but who we think we are that matters for making real change. Clear argues that our habits are shaped primarily through changing our identity. Often people set a goal without thinking about how it affects their perception of themselves. For example, many people say, "I'm trying to quit smoking," which implies that they still see themselves as a smoker. Now, imagine saying, "I don't smoke." That's a completely different perception of yourself. The author gives the example of a man who wanted to start running. He didn't just set a goal of running a certain number of kilometers a day, he began to see himself as a runner. This change in self-identity helped him stay motivated and continue to exercise even when it was difficult. Identity plays a key role in our behavior. So if you want to acquire new habits, start by changing your self-perception. For example, if you want to become a more organized person, start thinking of yourself as someone who always plans out their day and keeps track of their chores. When you begin to identify with the qualities you want to develop, habits form naturally and effortlessly. Third, the 4 laws of habit creation. Clear has developed 4 simple but very effective laws for creating and maintaining new habits. The first law is make it obvious. Habits are formed more easily if they are made visible. For example, if you want to drink more water throughout the day, put a water bottle in a prominent place. Every time your gaze falls on it, you'll remember to take a sip. The second law is make it attractive. A habit is easier to form if it is associated with something pleasurable. For example, if you find it difficult to start exercising, start listening to your favorite music while working out. This will make the process more enjoyable and increase your motivation. The author tells a story about a man who didn't like going to the gym but loved watching TV series. He set a condition. He could watch his favorite shows only during his workouts. This trick helped him make exercise a part of his daily life. The third law is make it easy. The easier a habit is to perform, the more likely you are to stick with it. Clear suggests lowering the barriers to starting a new habit. For example, if you want to work out in the morning, prepare your clothes and shoes the night before. The fewer barriers to performing a habit, the more likely you are to maintain it. And finally, the fourth law is make it satisfying. When a habit brings instant gratification, it's easier to maintain. Imagine that you have completed an important task at work. Reward yourself with something satisfying, a nice cup of tea or a few minutes of rest. The author emphasizes that positive reinforcement plays an important role in the formation of new habits. Fourth,
How habits work. The habit loop. All habits follow a certain structure, which Clear calls the habit loop. It consists of 4 elements: signal, desire, action, and reward. The author uses the toothpaste example. When advertisers first promoted toothpaste, they created an association between fresh breath and clean teeth. First, the signal was an unpleasant sensation in the mouth. Then the desire was to freshen breath. Then the action was brushing teeth. And finally, the reward was freshness and cleanliness. This cycle has reinforced the habit of brushing teeth twice a day in millions of people. In order to implement a useful habit in your life, you can build it on the same principle. For example, if you want to start running in the mornings, the first step might be to lay out your running clothes the night before. Cue. The desire to get out into the fresh air and exercise, desire. Then the run itself, action, and the feeling of satisfaction from the exercise, reward. Such a clear cycle will help you establish the habit for the long term. Fifth, creating an environment that supports habits. Environment is one of the most powerful factors that influence our habits. James Clear describes how an environmental change helped hospital employees increase their water consumption. All they did was move the water coolers to a more visible location. The amount of water they drank immediately increased, which means that even small changes in the environment can have a big impact on our behavior. If you want to change your habits, start by changing your environment. For example, if you want to start reading more books, put books in the most visible places in your home, where you can more easily pick them up. Or if you want to cut down on the time you spend on social media, try moving your phone away from your bed or desk. The whole point is that our environment influences our behavior more than we realize. Create an environment around you that will foster the habits you want. Sixth, how to make bad habits invisible. In order to break bad habits, Clear suggests making them invisible. The less we encounter triggers, the easier it is to give up the habit. For example, if you want to reduce the amount of time you spend watching TV, put the remote somewhere far away or remove the batteries. This will create an extra obstacle, and every time you want to turn on the TV, you'll wonder if it's worth the effort. The author also suggests making bad habits less appealing. For example, if you're trying to cut back on sweets in your diet, simply stop buying sweets and don't keep them at home. When temptation isn't around, it's much easier to ignore. Seventh, use the 2-minute system. One of the most powerful tools for forming new habits is the 2-minute rule. James Clear suggests starting any new habit with a minimal action that can be accomplished in just 2 minutes. The idea is that starting a new action is always the hardest. Once you get started, it will be much easier to continue. For example, if you want to start reading books every day, your goal might be to simply read 1 page a day. This action will take less than 2 minutes, but the most important thing is to get the process started. Imagine you want to start meditating, but you put it off every time. Instead of setting a goal to meditate for 30 minutes, just set aside 2 minutes to do it. It's such an insignificant amount of time that you'll have a hard time coming up with an excuse not to do it. But once you start with 2 minutes, you'll be surprised to notice that you'll often continue for longer. Because the hardest part is already done, you've started. The author gives examples of people who have achieved impressive results using this very approach. For example, one of his acquaintances decided to exercise, but he had a hard time getting started. He set himself the goal of just putting on a gym uniform and leaving the house. It took less than 2 minutes. However, once he was already outside in his gym clothes, it became much easier for him to go to the gym and exercise. Eighth, marginal improvement or accumulation effect. Progress in any field can be compared to a bank deposit with interest. Small efforts accumulated over time yield huge results. This is called compounding of interest or compounding. Clear calls it the accumulation effect, where 1% daily improvement gives you much more than you might expect. Although progress may be almost imperceptible at first, if you continue to follow your plan, after time you will notice significant changes. An example of this principle is learning a language. If you learn just 10 new words a day, you may feel like you're doing very little at first, but after a month you'll have 300 new words, and after a year you'll have over 3,000. The secret is not to try to achieve quick results, but to focus on constant, regular effort. The small steps lead to big achievements if you follow them for a long time. The author emphasizes that this principle works not only with good habits, but also with bad ones. Small, seemingly insignificant lapses accumulated over time can lead to disastrous consequences. For example, skipping workouts once a week doesn't seem like a big deal at first, but if it becomes a regular habit, over time your efforts will come to naught.
Ninth, the power of tracking habits. One way to increase the likelihood that you will follow your habits is to track them. Keeping records of how you're following your goals will motivate you to keep going, even though the results may not be obvious at first. Clear suggests a simple system. Every day you perform a habit, mark it on your calendar or in a special app. With each new day marked, you have a chain that you'll want to keep. This creates visual confirmations of your progress, and the desire not to break the chain motivates you to keep going. The author gives the example of comedian Jerry Seinfeld, who used this method to write at least one joke every day. Each day he wrote, he marked an X on his calendar. As time went on, his chain of marks got longer, and this motivated him to keep going because he didn't want to interrupt it anymore. Tracking habits helps you stay on track toward your goal, even if your motivation starts to fade. This method is especially useful for long-term goals, where you may not see results until months or even years later. Your brain enjoys seeing progress, and this encourages you to keep working on the habits. 10th, preventing breakdowns and minimizing the consequences. Even the most disciplined people face the fact that sooner or later they miss the fulfillment of a habit. Clear's key rule is to never skip 2 days in a row. One skip is not a problem, but 2 days in a row can cause you to stop performing a habit altogether. The key is to get back to performing the habit as soon as possible to reduce the setback. The author tells a story about an athlete who could have easily missed a week or more of training after an illness, but he was very focused on getting back in shape as quickly as possible. Even if his workout was minimal, he still went out for a run to keep his momentum going. This approach helps avoid the all-or-nothing mindset, where people give up after missing a day and stop doing what they started. It's important to realize that mistakes are a natural part of the process. Even if you stumble once, it's no reason to give up. The key is to get back into rhythm quickly. Clear emphasizes, your goal is not to be perfect, but simply to be better than you were yesterday. 11th, using accountability and social factors. People are much more successful at implementing new habits when they are accountable to others. In the book, Clear talks about how society and environment can influence our behavior. He gives the example of how support groups and programs like Alcoholics Anonymous harness the power of collective accountability. When a person knows that their successes are being tracked by others, they tend to take more responsibility in accomplishing tasks. If you want to increase your chances of success, find an accountability partner. This could be a friend, family member, or coworker with whom you agree to hold accountable for meeting your goals. You can also use social media to publicly declare your intention and then periodically share your results. The fear of disappointing other people can be a powerful motivator to keep following a habit. The 12th, or the last idea, is about creating a system to automate habits. The last important idea from the book is about automating processes. Clear explains that if you want habits to stick for the long term, you need to make them part of a system rather than just relying on your willpower. This can be automation through creating rituals or habits that are linked together. For example, if your goal is to meditate every day, you can link that habit to something you do every day automatically. For example, right after brushing your teeth in the morning, you start meditating. Creating a habit chain where one habit automatically follows another is a powerful tool to make habits stick for the long haul. You'll need to put energy into creating the system at first, but once it becomes part of your life, the habits will happen automatically. So, friends, we've broken down the key ideas of the book Atomic Habits. I hope this review has helped you better understand how you can start implementing useful habits in your life and get rid of the ones that hinder you. As you can see, big changes don't happen through sudden steps, but through small, consistent actions. The key is to be patient and focus on the process, not just the result. After reading this book, I will try to start meditating. What about you? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new episodes. Thanks for watching, and see you soon.